subscribe.
Okay, so the two triangles ABC and PQR are mathematically similar. Angle A is equal to angle P and angle B is equal to angle Q. AB is 8, AC is 26, PQ is 12 and QR is 45. So as soon as you see the word mathematically similar, you know it's a similar shape question. So we need to calculate the length of PR. To do that, what we need to do is find a corresponding side, such as 8 and 12, and we need to find the linear scale factor. So we've got 8 to 12. We want this in the form 1 to n, so we're going to divide by 8. That will give us 1, and then we're going to do 12 divided by 8. And remember, it's a calculator paper, so you can use your calculator. So 12 divided by 8 will give us 1.5. And the 1.5 is your linear scale factor. So now we're going to go to calculate the length of PR. So the corresponding side is AC. So we're going to go 26. And remember, when you go to from a small shape to a larger shape, you times by the scale factor. So we're going to do 26 times 1.5. So we've got 26 times 1.5. That will give you 39 centimeters for PR. Now, question B, you're going to calculate the length of BC. So the length of BC is this side, and you're going to get the corresponding side on the larger shape. So this time you're going from the larger shape to the smaller one, so you're going to divide. So we're going to do 45 divided by 1.5, which is the linear scale factor. And that gives you 30 centimeters for BC. And you're done. Pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so you've got a similar shape question as well. BE is parallel to CD. AB equals 9 centimeters. BC equals 3 centimeters. CD equals 7 centimeters. And AE equals 6 centimeters. Calculate the length of ED. The first thing I would do is resketch this shape so you've got two separate triangles, because at the minute it looks a little bit confusing. So I've got the smaller one, which would be A, to B, and then to E. And that is 9 centimeters, and the right hand side is 6. And then you've got the longer version, which is point A to point C. And you've got 9 plus the 3, which will give you 12. You've got the base from C to D, which is 7. And then we can go and try to tackle the questions now. Calculate the length of ED. So we need this length here. So again, we need corresponding sides. So you've got 9 and 12. And you're going to find the linear scale factor. So you're going to go 9 to 12. You're going to divide it by 9 to get it to the form of 1 to n. So that'll give you 1. And then we're going to do 12 divided by 9. And 12 divided by 9 on your calculator will give you 1.3 recurring. It's important that you remember the 3 recurring. So now we're going to go from the small shape to the larger shape with a corresponding side, and we're going to times it by 1.3 recurring. So you've got 1.3 recurring times by 6. That gives you that full length A to D is 8. But they've already give us A to E, which is 6. So that would just be 8 minus the full length 8 minus the 6 for the top bit. That would give you E to D is 2 centimeters. So this question at the top is 2 centimeters. Now what we need to do is calculate the length of BE. So we're going to do this question just over here so it's out the way. We need to calculate the length of BE. So we've got the length of CD, which is the corresponding side, and we're going to try to find BE. So remember, we're going from the larger shape to the smaller one. So quite simply, we're just going to divide by the scale factor, or the linear scale factor of 1.3 recurring. So we've got 7 divided by 1.3 recurring. that will give us 5.25 for question B. So 5.25 centimeters for that, and you're done. So Leanne invests 2,500 for 4 years in a savings account. She gets 3% per annum compound interest. How much money does Leanne have at the end of 4 years? So remember, when you're looking at compound interest, you need to try to find your decimal multiplier. So if you had 100%, you add the 3% to it, which will give you 103%, and that as your decimal multiplier underneath would just give you 1.03, sorry. So now you set up your question, 2,500 times your compound interest amount, which is as a decimal multiplier 1.03, and then to the number of years, which is 4. Hit that in your calculator exactly as you can see on the screen, and you will get 2,813.77 to 2 decimal places, because remember you're talking about money here, so that'd be 77 pence, and you're done. Okay, pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so Annie invests 9,500 for 5 years in a savings account. She gets 1.8% per annum compound interest. How much money does Annie have at the end of 5 years? So if you had 100% plus 1%, that would give you 101%, and as a decimal multiplier, that would be 1.01. So therefore, using that same idea, 1.8% would give you 1.018, and that is your decimal multiplier for the 1.8% compound interest. So you start with the amount in the question, 9,500, times by your compound interest, 1.018, and that to the number of years would be 5. Hit that in your calculator the way you see it on the screen, and that to 2 decimal places will give you 10,386.34 when you round up. So on my calculator, what I can see is 0.339, but remember, to 2 decimal places, the 9 rounds the 3 up, so that's why you get 34 pence instead, and you're done. So number y is rounded to 1 decimal place. The result is 19.3. Write down the error interval for y. So quite simply, because it's to 1 decimal place, you've got your unit 0.1, and whatever unit you have, you just half it. So you'd half that and you'd get 0.05, and you would minus that for your lower bound, and for your upper bound you would just plus it. And what that will give you is y is bigger than or equal to, and y has to be less than. So 19.3 subtract 0.05 will give you 19.25, and if you plus it, that will give you 19.35, and you're done. Video and have a go at your question. Okay, so a number y is rounded to 2 decimal places. The result is 1.26. Write down the error interval for y. So quite simply, again, your unit is 0.01 to 2 decimal places. If you half that, that will give you 0.005, and for the lower bound, you're going to subtract it. For the upper bound, you're going to add. So you start off with y is bigger than or equal to, but less than, and then that will give you 1.255, and that will give you 1.265 when you add, and you're done. Okay, so the histogram shows the ages of visitors to a library one morning. What percentage of visitors were over 40 years old? Remember, to find out the frequency, you are trying to find out the area. which you would do frequency density times the class width, which is how wide each bar is. So you've got frequency equals frequency density times the class width. And then quite simply, we're going to look at each bar. We've got 10 wide times each 2 squares is making 1, so that is 6 high. 6 times 10 is going to be 60. Then this is 10 to 20, which is 10 wide again. So that's going to be 10 times, well, this is 15, that is 20. So halfway is going to be 17.5, and 17.5 times 10 is 175. And then this bar is wider, and it goes 20 to 40, which is 20 wide. And this is going to be 10, 2 squares, 11, 12, it's going to be 13, so this goes up to 13 high for this one. So 20 times 13 will give us 260. And then this one is 40 to 45, so that's 5 wide times 15. So 5 times 15 gives us 75 for this bar. And then the last bar goes from 45 to 55, so that's still 10 wide, and it goes up to 5, so 10 times 5 is quite simply 50. And then we're going to get the total, so our total for this one is going to be 60 plus 175. Even though it's a calculator paper, still show what you're doing on your calculator. 260 plus 75 plus 50, that gives me a total of 60 plus 175 plus 260 plus 75 plus 50 gives me a total of 620. We're trying to find out the percentage that are over 40 years old. So we're looking at these 2 bars at the end, and that gives you people who are over 40. So we want 75 plus 50, which equal over 40 years old. And 75 plus 50 gives us 125. And to get that as a percentage, what we would do is we would do 125 out of a total of 620 times by 100, which will give you your percentage. So 125 divided by 620 times that by 100, that gives us a percentage of 20.16, rounded up to 20.2, yeah, so 20.2%, and you're done. Okay, pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so the histogram shows information about the speeds in miles per hour that cars travel through a village. The speed limit is 60 miles per hour. Work out the percentage of cars that were under the speed limit of 60 miles per hour. So again, like the previous question, your frequency is equal to the frequency density times the class width. And if we work out the frequency for the first one, it's 30 wide, goes 0 to 30, so that's 30. We're going to times that by 5, because it goes 5 high. 5 times 130 is 150. The next bar goes 30 to 40, which is 10 wide. And if we look, the scale is going up in 0.2s, so it goes 6.2, 6.4, 6.6. So on this one, it's going to be 10 times 6.6, and that would give you 66. And then the next one is 40 to 60, which is 20 wide, and then this one goes up 3.2, 3.4, 3.6, and 3.6 times 20 will give us 72 for that one. And then the last one is 60 to 90, which is 30 wide, and this one goes up 2, so that's going to go 0.2, 0.4, and 0.4 times by the 30 will give you an area of 12. And this time we're not looking for over, we're looking for under, so under the speed limit of 60. So we want under 60 is everything that is under there. That gives you 150, 66, and 72. So first of all, our total is 150 plus 66 plus 72 plus 12. And if we add that up, we get 150 plus 66 plus 72 plus 12. That gives us 300. And then under 60 is going to give us 150 plus the 66 plus the 72. And if we do that, that gives us a total of 288. And to get your final answer as a percentage, you're going to do the 288 over 300 times by 100. And let's see what that gives us. 288 divided by 300 times by 100. That gives us 96%. And you're done. Okay, so write 64 times 4 to the power of 5 as a power of 4. So first thing we need to do is convert this 64 into a power of 4. So if I was to do 4 times 4, 4 times 4 is 16, and 4 times 4 is 4 squared. And if I was to do 4 times 4 times 4, that would give you 64, and that is 4 to the power of 3. So that, as a power of 4, is going to be 4 to the power of 3. Now we're going to times that by 4 to the power of 5. And quite simply, remember, when you multiply, the index law for multiplying with indices is to add. So you've got 4 to the power of 3 plus 5, which quite simply just gives you 4 to the power of 8. And you're done. Okay, pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so it says give the value of x as a fraction in its simplest form. So at the minute, we've got a 2 and we've got a 2, so we need to make sure all the bases are the same. So we need to get 8 with a base of 2. So if I was to do 2 times 2, that would give us 4, and 2 times 2 is 2 squared. That doesn't get us to 8. So if I was to do 2 times 2 times 2, that would give us 8, and that is 2 to the power of 3. So now you've got 2 to the power of 3, but you've already got this to the power of a half. So that is going to go on the outside. And then you've got times 2 to the power of x, and remember x is what we're trying to find out, and then that will equal 2 to the power of 23 over 10. So remember now you've got a power raised to a power, and for that index law what you do is you multiply, so that will give you 2, and that will give you 3 times a half, and a half 3 times is going to give you 1.5, or if you put 3 over 1 as a fraction, that would give you 3 times 1, which is 3, and 1 times 2, which is 2, so that is 1.5, or 3 over 2. So now what I've got is 2 to the power of 3 over 2 times 2 to the power of x, which is equal to 2 to the power of 23 over 10. And quite simply, to get x by itself, you know that the index law for indices is quite simply 3 over 2. When you're multiplying, remember, you add, so that's going to be 3 over 2 plus x equals 23 over 10. And to get x by itself, we're going to minus by 3 over 2 on both sides. So now what we need to calculate is 23 over 10 minus 3 over 2. And now you've just got a fraction question. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this fraction to the same base by timesing by 5. And that will give us 3 times 5 is 15. And 2 times 5 is 10. And you've got 23 over 10 minus 15. 23 minus 15 gives you 8 over 10. And it says give x as a fraction in its simplest form. So quite simply, x is equal to 8 over 10, but we can half this, so our final answer would be x equals 4 over 5, and you're done. Okay, using algebra, prove that 0.54 recurring times 0.5 recurring is equal to the value to 10 over 33. So quite simply what you need to do is convert both of these recurring decimals to fractions first. So if I had x is equal to 0.54 recurring. We're going to keep multiplying this to be able to subtract to get rid of the recurring. And remember, when we multiply, we're multiplying by powers of 10. So a 10x will give us 5.45 recurring. A 100x is going to give me 4.54 recurring. And we can see that the 5.4 recurring is the same on the x and the 100x, so we can subtract that. We can do 100x, which is 54.54 recurring, subtracting the x, which is 0.54 recurring, and when we subtract that, that will give us 99x is equal to 54, and then we're going to divide by 99 on both sides. That will just give us x is equal to 54 over 99. Now what we need to do the same thing for 0.5 recurring. So we've got a x value of 0.5 recurring, and then we'll have a 10x value, which is equal to 5.5 recurring, and we can subtract that to give us 10 minus x, which equals 0.5 recurring, which will give us 9x's is equal to 5, and then divide by 9 on both sides. That will give you x is equal to 5 over 9. Now we have both of these recurring decimals as fractions, we can go ahead and multiply this up. So quite simply, we've got 54 over 99 times 5 over 9, and quite simply we can just multiply this across. So we can do 54 times 5 and 99 times 9, but if we cross cancel, 54 is divisible by 9, and you get 6, and then 9 goes into 9 once, so that can cancel down to 1, and then you got 6 times 5, which equals 30, and you got 99 times 1, which is just 99, and that can be divided by 3, which will give you 10 over 33, and you're done. Pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so it says work out 1.54 recurring times 0.2 recurring. Give your answer as a fraction in its simplest form. So quite simply, remember, you need to convert both recurring decimals into fractions. So for the first one, x would equal 1.54 recurring. We're going to multiply by a 10x, so that will give us 15.4 recurring. And then if we multiply it by 100x, that will line it up to give us 154.4 recurring. And what we can subtract is a 100x minus a 10x, and that would give us 15.4 recurring. And 100x minus 10x will give us 90x, and 154 minus 15 gives us 139, and the two recurring 0.4s will cancel. We're going to divide this by 90 on both sides. That will now give us x is equal to 139 over 90 as the first fraction. We're going to do the second one, and x would equal 0.2 recurring. A 10x would equal 2.2 recurring, and if we subtract the 10x by the x, that would give us 0.2 recurring. 10x minus x will give us 9x, and 2 take away 0 is just 2, and the 0.2 recurrings cancel out. Divide by 9 on both sides. that will give you x is equal to 2 over 9. Now, quite simply, you can multiply both the fractions. So we've got 139 over 90 times by 2 over 9. And you can cross cancel because 2 is divisible by 2 once, and 90 is divisible by 2 45 times. So you've got 139 times 1, which is 139, and you've got 45 times 9, which you can use on your calculator, remember, will give us 405, and that is your final answer, and you're done. Okay, how many people took less than 30 seconds on this cumulative frequency graph? So quite simply, on the time for seconds, you're going to get to 30 and draw a straight line. And then when you hit the graph line, you're going to go across, and you get across from there, and that gives you 34. So your answer is going to give you 34 people using the cumulative frequency graph, and you're done. Okay, pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so it says how many people took longer than 25 seconds. So quite simply, on the x-axis, go to 25, draw a line till you hit the graph, and then go across and you get to 30. So this one's slightly different to the previous question because this time it wants to see how many people were longer than 25 seconds. So when you've gone across, you've got to 30, but it's not 30 people because it's out of a total of 40. So everything above the 30, which gets you to 40, that is how many people you have that took longer than the 25 seconds that way. So quite simply, you've got 40 minus the 30 that you're at, and that will give you 10 people that took longer than 25 seconds, and you're done. Okay, so you need to work out the area of a triangle, give your answer to one decimal place. This is a non-right angle triangle, so remember the rule for a non-right angle triangle is half AB sine C. And quite simply, your angle is going to be C, and either side is going to be A or B. It doesn't really matter which one, but we'll go with 13 for A, and B is going to be 12. So we've got half times A, which is 13, times B, which is 12, times sine C, which is just sine 120. Hit that in your calculator to one decimal place. So we've got 0.5 times 13 times 12 times sine 120. That gives me 67.54, and remember, to one decimal place, that's just going to give us 67.5 centimeters squared for the area, and you're done. Pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so it says work out the area of the triangle, give your answer to 3 significant figures. So again, remember the formula is half AB sine C, and we've got 5 to be A and 8 to be B. So we've got a half times 5 times 8 times sine 41. We're going to hit that in our calculator, and we get an answer of 13.121 with some more digits after that. However, we only need 3 significant figures, so this is your first significant figure, this is your second, this is your third, and the 2 does not round the 1 up, so your final answer is going to equal 13.1 centimeters squared, and that's your answer, and you're done. Okay. It says the diagram shows a sector with a center 0. The radius of the circle is 8 centimeters. The angle of the sector is 150 degrees. Calculate the area of the sector. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So remember, it's the angle you've got out of 360 times by pi r squared, which will give you an area of a full circle, but we've got a fraction of a circle, and the fraction we've got is 150, out of 360 times by pi, and your radius is just 8, so times 8 squared. We're going to hit that in our calculator. So 150 over 360 times pi times 8 squared, and that gives us an answer of 83.775 with some more digits after. But remember, we wanted to 3 significant figures, so there's your first significant, there's your second, there's your third. So this 7 rounds up the next 7 up to a 8, so that would be 83.8 centimeters squared, and you're done. Okay, pause the video and have a go at your question. Okay, so your question says the diagram shows a sector, center 0, the radius of the circle is 15.2, the angle of the sector is 165 degrees. Again, we need to calculate the area, and we want to 3 significant figures again. So we've got the angle out of 360 times pi r squared, and your angle is 165 out of 360. You're going to times that by pi times the radius, which here is 15.2 squared. You're going to hit that in your calculator. So 165 over 360 times by pi times 15.2 squared, which gives us an answer of 332.67 with some more digits. But we only want 3 significant figures, so you got 1, 2, 3. So this 6 rounds the 2 up, and that will give you 333 centimeters squared, and that's it. You're done.